anyone has discolored water, please report it. If you call the city, I've told Becky and Jan just to route it to our office. If we know a location, we can go get the contractor to flush it. If we can't get it under control with just a little bit of flushing, then we'll figure out next step to how big of an area we need to flush. We took care of about 3 minor areas last week just by going and flushing. If I end up having to flush through a house hydrant, which we had to last week on one case, because there was no fire hydrant to flush out through or something like that, then I take a meter reading before and after we turn that into the system, and the patron gets credit for that amount of water we flushed through their house to get it to clear up. So please direct everybody to call the EDH office. Like I said, call city, that's fine. Becky and Jan will have them right down to our office. We'll get an address, we'll go see how fast we can take care of it. This is gonna happen. There's no doubt about it. So we just wanna try to get it taken care of as soon as we can for everybody. We still have some isolated valve. You'll see yellow, couple isolated valves. And then probably the last thing that's gonna be done on the project is that little loop clear down off of South Roosevelt back over to South Freeborn, South Coble. That's looking like that's gonna be the last, because there's no services down there. It's purely connecting some mains to get a better loop.
Where is that on Roosevelt, South Roosevelt?
It's gonna tie in, okay, so just north of Box's house is that big cluster of trees.
Mhm.
And then Venduska is that next house.
Mhm.
It's gonna be right at the north edge of the tree cluster, south edge of Venduska's yard.
Okay.
There's already an easement through there,
Mhm.
all the way over to Cole.
Okay.
So that's where we're gonna run it. And it's gonna be 100% bore, all the way across. So it doesn't quite catch the cul-de-sac,
Mhm.
but it will give a loop just right on the north edge of the cul-de-sac.
We've never had water problems, but I know others
It's,
have.
well, as long as your cul-de-sac area continues to show the young population growth it has recently,
Mhm.
there's enough water use going on down there, it's gonna keep it clear.
That's nice of you to consider Kelly and I young population.
Well, yeah,
That you
I
just
won't say
upset.
anymore. I won't, no, yeah, we won't. So, any other questions?
I got a comment. I've been around Charlie's crew a bunch, and now I've been exposed to Carlson. Those people all care about how kind of work they're doing in town. Like for instance, I got an extra grade because that one tree is close to the water line. So they said, if we can move it over here, that'd be better. I said, okay, that'd be fine. But you know, they're willing to work and make it right.
I heard you were prepping to request, you know, instead of being located eventually up north, that you just wanted to be out in your front yard. That you requested a zoning ordinance.
Yeah, there's something to it.
No, but it's true. Charlie's crew, there's a lot of things that are behind the scenes that he has done to not eliminate, but just make a lot of the stuff easier for the population. A lot of the way that he has chosen to tie over or, not necessarily cross-connecting everything at every street as we go. So like we take side streets on and the old man on, and people, just to lessen the impact of the outages. That he's kind of gone above and beyond in his way of doing things to help that out and ease that, so. Sometimes Carlson's crew kind of gets they kind of get the jip of the end because they're coming through and they're making a bigger mess. We leave the mounds, that's another thing, like I said, that we're leaving the mounds of dirt. I said this before, I want to continue to make sure it's known. We leave them for about 2 weeks until we can jet them and get them to settle out. Because if we scraped it bare right after we did the work, I guarantee within that 2 weeks, there'd be a settlement. So instead of having to haul the dirt away and then haul it back in, we wait for it to settle, we water jet it to get it compacted in, let it settle just a little bit more, then we remove the dirt pile. That way, we're not having to get in there more than once, so.
When that line comes down Lincoln Street.
Yes.
It's completed and in service, but is it service to our addition down there.
Yeah,
Come
it is,
down.
it is tied, it is open. That new line that comes up from underneath, Sugar Mill Dam is tied to this line that goes right into your subdivision.
Okay.
So you are 100% full live on actually being fed from two directions now.
Okay,
And it's all, the line that comes from underneath, it's an 8-inch HDPE line, but it's really, when you talk about HDPE, it's just a little bit bigger than 6-inch PVC. So in essence, we've got a 6-inch coming up from underneath Sugar Mill and a full new 6-inch coming down Lincoln, right into the 6-inch that goes through that subdivision and ties on to Roosevelt.
and that all ties right there with that fire hydrant.
Yes, right, the fire hydrant just on the southeast corner of
Yeah.
Lincoln and Maple, right, that's where they all three, underneath that new street patch is where they all three come together.
Okay.
Yep.
Any questions? Okay.
Next meeting will be a pay estimate for contractor, and we will be close at that one to what KDHE considers 50% done.
Okay.
So, just to give you a kind of a ballpark idea where we're at in the whole grand scheme of things.
Moving on, item number 14, water plant ozone generator update. Jim?
I don't have much update on that. Jason was gone, he worked the weekend, so I didn't have a chance to talk to him today, other than that.
Okay, well, let me take it. The funding under the American Rescue Plan, where we're getting 2 allotments, half of it this year, hopefully in the next 30 days, and then the other half comes next year. We can spend all that as we get it, or we have until the end of 2024 to spend it. So the staff has been looking at all of our true infrastructure needs that qualify under the American Rescue Plan to figure out what should be the highest priority. We've already talked about the water towers and what needs to be done there. And I've gotten all of the reports from inspections that have been done since 2015 on our water towers. So we've got a real good perspective there. Item 13 that we took off the agenda was a sewer line that there's been a concern, but Frank believes he has another way to take care of that one that would be more cost effective as we're figuring out the priorities, okay? The other piece of it that I wanted to make city council aware of, because we really haven't spoken of the water plant and ozone system, but our water plant, when the upgrades were done, there were 2 ozone generators, equipment that produced ozone for the final disinfectant. It's more effective than chlorine disinfectant. And the biggest advantage for us, this is the only technology that completely offsets the negative effects of blue-green algae, the toxins in the wood, okay? So we have state-of-the-art equipment that was installed when the water plant was done. However, like all equipment, it reaches a time that you have to get in and start redoing. The pandemic, Mitsubishi had pulled their service technicians out of the United States and brought them all back to Japan. And when then the pandemic started, they eliminated all of their service techs in North America and South America. So they dropped back. So the part on the diagram, it's the long cylinder that goes alongside. The large cabinet is all the high voltage electricity that basically sends an electric current through the cylinder. Inside the cylinder, there's glass tubes that hold a dielectric rod. It basically consumes itself over time to make the ozone because of the interaction with electricity. Before the pandemic, we had gotten the quote, and it's $120,000 for each unit to rebuild them, okay? But that included flying technicians from Japan here,
having them stay, all of this. We found, an authorized service contractor out of Ohio. They came in last week, and they're putting together the final bid for us. What they'll have us do is disconnect the cylinder assembly, ship it to their lab in Ohio. They'll remanufacture it, ship it back, and then we'll do the reinstallation here. So I'm just giving you an update on what's going on with everything. Within generator number 2, there's 4 of the tubes that are not working at all, so we get very reduced ozone capacity from that one. Number 1 still full capacity, which is more than enough for our needs. Worst case scenario, we've kept a chlorine disinfectant system paralleled next to both ozone, so we've got a fallback position either way. I just wanted to bring this to your attention so you're aware as a council, we're trying to work together to determine what really should we use, our highest priorities, what will get us the best return on this federal grant money from the American Rescue Plan. So we're continuing to look at our 2 water towers and what needs to be done there. The sewer project that we had the concerns over, we may be able to solve that with doing an in-house project in another way that will take care of the issue. But the ozone, this does qualify under the guidelines of the American Rescue Plan. It's critical infrastructure for water sanitation, so it would be a very easy one to qualify under the grant.
So we only got, of the ozone, only one of the tube is working? There's 2 generators,
There's 2 units there,
2 units.
okay? One is still running at 100% capacity. Number 2 is running at reduced capacity, and at times it won't produce enough.
Can we get by with the one?
Yes, it was a redundant system, and the now mayor had it put in.
Hey, I was a part of that.
Okay, Jerry was part of it too.
Yeah, he voted for it.
Yeah.
Make that clear.
But I didn't think it'd be wore out by now.
Roger, by shipping these out, do we have a cost estimate on these?
I do not. The technicians that came in, and one of them is Dr. Tour, who actually owns this company in Ohio. He came to our site, and so he'll put together the estimate and get it back to us. We have asked them to expedite it, because we'd like to get it included in whatever federal money we can utilize to do this. But as soon as I get that, we'll be sharing it. I just wanted you to be aware, we've got 1 unit's working fine, and we'll have to rebuild that in the future. Hard to believe, we're past the 10-year mark on this, maintenance on that.
As I recall, I don't think there was any information available of the length of time that those things would have lasted, but now we've got somewhat of a timeline, probably about 15 to 20 years it's been in service.
Right, and, Dr. Atur is telling us in a lot of plants where these have been installed, they're seeing 10 to 12 years.
Well,
It's based on the amount of water that you're running through your plant.
right. I'm wondering if we should maybe be putting some aside every year for refurbishing those next time around. That's something we probably ought to think about, but we're not always gonna have this grant money available to us, so. And if we do it over a 10, 15-year period, it would be a nominal amount to put back every year. Okay, so you might look into that and put a pencil to it and figure out how much a year we should probably put back.
And it's like the water towers, we're looking at getting the initial repair done and then going on a maintenance program.
Right.
That's what we've done with mayor services for the sewers. So every 3rd year, we're getting a 1/3 of our system
Right.
cleaned out, camera. It's extending the life of the assets by doing that.
Okay.
Yeah, we have to invest $8,000 or $10,000 a year in these maintenance programs. but that way you don't have the big chunks that you have.
Do you need any action tonight from the
I
council?
do not,
Okay,
simply wanted you to be aware
alright,
of,
I wasn't aware of that.
any other questions?
Not particularly on the water plant, but would this American Rescue Plan cover like streets and stuff like that?
it does not, it specifically excluded those. Now, there is under the plan, if we can, they'll allow up to 4.5% of what our revenues were for 2019. In the general fund, we can claim that as lost revenues. And under that, in lost revenues, then we could use that for street work.
Well, I keep thinking about that retaining wall that's on Locust Street, right off the main, it's falling down over that creek. You know what I mean?
She's talking about the bridge on Locust.
Okay.
Well, I call it a retaining wall.
Yeah, it is the top end of the box.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we've been measuring, and actually, there's been no more movement in that wall, so. That one, are we going to, there'll be another cycle through the KDOT, the
Cost share
Cost share
in
program.
fall. They haven't announced one here in the spring, so I don't know if they. I don't know,
Well, I know
but there'll be
they,
another one in fall.
yeah, they have, it's kind of, it qualifies under that.
Okay.
The state of Kansas and KDOT has, they're calling it an IKE program. It's the 10-year comprehensive plan, and they do a cost share grant each year. That type of project qualifies for, cost share.
And we've submitted on it, it's just, the reviewers within KDOT have not deemed it worthy to receive funding. And I think that's because a high majority of the projects we see get funded can tie jobs directly to the funding project. And when we're talking about repairing street, curb and gutter, storm drain items on residential streets, there's no way to tie jobs directly to it. That's my best guess at reading between the lines of how things have panned out. If that same bridge retaining wall was next to Marion Manufacturing or Carlson's Grocery, okay, we could, it'd be a higher likelihood, but because it's on a residential street, it's a tougher sell.
Thank you.
But thank you, we'll keep looking for different funding mechanisms to do the project.
Okay, any other questions? Number 15, acquisition of fleet service truck proposal.
Okay, we found a truck there at Midway. I know in our budget, we've only had 20,000 allotted for a fleet truck, and we've looked at a lot of stuff for around $20,000, and it's a lot of high mile stuff, and rusted out service boxes already, and we found this one that's really pretty good shape. It is more than what we got in the budget, but really low miles. I think it's something that lasts a long time, and talked to Roger a little bit about it, and maybe like using the budget down, the 20,000 down, and then doing the 8,000 budget for next year, and he had an idea of the financing style of going about it, maybe.
Yeah, we've got two ways that we could approach it, and first off, the macro economy isn't being kind to us right now because of the chip shortage for new trucks. Used trucks are going at absolute premium prices,
And then some.
okay? And then some, yeah, okay? So, timing wise, probably not the best time to go after a truck. But as Tim said, everything we're trying to find in the $20,000 range is very high mileage. Very well used, bordering on abused, okay? So for that, if $38,674, we have a couple of options. We could allocate from the utility funds additional money this year. We would have to do a budget amendment, but, we could take additional money out of the utilities, which would be utilizing this, use that to pay it all this year. The other option would be to do a RFP, a request for proposal from our local banks for a lease purchase 2-year, similar to what we've been doing for the police cars, okay? So we'd have a couple of options. We could spread the cost out, we'd be looking at like 14.5 each year. This year, put it in next year's budget after we get, the request for proposals out. Or we could move some funds within our utilities to add to the 20,000 that was already budgeted.
What we do for older utility truck?
Okay, this is actually gonna be for the sewer department and the old blue truck. That basically its service box is rusted out. Runs half the time, we'll do the purple wave that, and I think we got a couple other, an old mower at the cemetery that needs to be purple wave.
What about the grader?
Well, till we get something different, better have it just in case we have to lose an inch of dirt, so. Anyway, but yeah, the blue truck would be on, that's what we'd be replacing, and it'll go on purple wave. But right now Frank's got everything packed in behind his seat, all his tools, and just stacked up his toolbox and parts, and he don't have no bed cover on the truck, it's just Marty's hand-me-down, old pickup, so. The service box, at least he can keep his parts and tools all in that kind of box, so.
What would be your recommendation of financing it or just paying for it?
It'd be my recommendation to go out for an RFP with the local banks, spread it out over the 2 years, helps our local economy a little bit, slightly with the banks, but.
You have any idea what their interest rate is right now?
About 2.25 to 2.5.
Sign him up. Well, I think I personally looked at that truck and, we utilized it down the park when I was working down there. It is old. It was here when I was here. And I'm old. So it's old. But yeah, it definitely needs to be replaced, without a doubt.
The jack fell out of the back box because it rusted out from the
Yeah.
street, so it's shot.
Well, and it also, it almost becomes a safety item, so, what's your pleasure?
I think we should finance it.
Is that a motion?
I could make it, I guess.
Just need a motion to, we'll put a down payment from our equipment reserve on this truck to hold it. We'll issue the request for proposal. We'll come back to council with the rates.
There you go. Say just say, what do you think?
That's good.
Is
What
that okay
Roger
with
said.
you?
I know what Roger said.
Okay.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Number 16, hospital alley proposal, Roger.
Okay, I'll make an assumption the council's seen the work that the hospital's having done. They did a south parking lot, and then they're working on the north employee parking lot. The contractor approached a council member and inquired, would the city be willing to replace the entrance ramp to the alley and then pave that alley so there'd be dual access points for this hospital parking lot. Okay. The estimate is in the package that we received from the contractor. To do the tear out and replacement of the entrance is $3,492, and then the slab that the contractor's proposing would go, on this diagram, from Maple Street all the way back to the, storage building that sits on their parking lot. So it's 68 feet of 6-inch concrete at 91.80. We could cover the expense of this, although it wasn't planned for any of our street projects, out of street and alley fund this year. I do have to express a concern from staff that a project of this nature, it's a very limited benefit. It goes to one group of citizens rather than the general public, because it is an employee parking lot. But, I wanted to make you all aware of it.
Well, if I read this right, the hospital isn't asking for this, right?
No, the contractor approached a city councilor wanting to know if the city would co-op on it. And then the councilor referred me to the contractor, and I went to, hey, Dave, I need to understand what we're looking for.
Well, I personally think that we'd be better off spending some of our money downtown in the alleys. Have you drove through the alleys downtown? We've been promising those business people for years that we would upgrade those alleys.
Well, I would totally agree with that, plus other streets, you know, we can
Okay.
utilize those funds
I
for.
mean, it would be nice to have this and that, but there's also zoning regulations where Margot, where the egress from the alley, is that allowed?
I don't know off the top of my head, I know there's something in there.
I don't think it is, because there's one in my alley that way, and they can't do that.
I just can't quote it,
I think zoning would have to look at it too, so.
yeah.
I think, Mr. Mayor, we ought to spend our money elsewhere.
I agree with Jerry.
Yeah,
There's better places to put this money
Yeah,
than just
I-
one group.
I would go along with that, Chris.
Sure.
Susan?
Totally.
No.
All that, thank you.
Okay, number 17, city code concern follow-up discussion.
Yes, I've kind of got three sections that we need to discuss. The first one I'm gonna start, was, KSA was publication of ordinances, because there was a question about whether the city needed to opt out because we do ordinance summaries. As you're all aware, 12-3007 allows that a city can publish an ordinance summary as opposed to publishing the whole ordinance. And that's what the city has been doing, because it's a lot more economical for us. There are certain things that we publish the whole thing, but on this, we don't do that. I spoke with the league, and I did some checking of